Hey there, I'm Tatiana Mejia, passionate traveler and about cooking, and I found a way to blend my two greatest loves by creating the first gastronomic tourism agency in Latin America. Welcome to Bites and Sides, where we travel by eating and eat by traveling. In this space, I'll take you on a journey to discover gastronomic tourism, a one of a kind way to explore the world through its flavors, traditions, and local communities. When we think about traveling to discover new flavors, we often imagine the dish served in front of us, the aroma that envelopes us, the smile of a person who prepared it. But for all that to be possible, there is a preliminary step that is less glamorous but absolutely essential: the documentation and regulations of the country we are going to visit. Chile, with its geographical diversity and gastronomic richness, ranging from northern empanadas to Central Valley wines and southern seafood, is a destination that captivates visitors. However, to fully enjoy this experience and without any step backs, we need to understand how to navigate its legal and cultural framework. Why is this so important for gastronomic tourism? Because unlike a traditional trip, the gastronomic traveler develops into local markets, participating fairs, samples food in family restaurants, and sometimes even brings back ingredients or drinks to share at home. And this is where regulations come in. There are products that we cannot bring into or take out of the country, documents that we must have up to date, and behaviors that we must respect so not to affect local traditions. In addition, Chile is very strict with its health and customs control. This is not a whim, it's a way of protecting its biodiversity, agriculture, and gastronomy. A single undeclared food item can introduce pests that affect entire crops. So rather than a barrier, there's rules are shield to preserve the flavors we love to discover. In this episode, we'll talk all about that. What documents you need to enter Chile and move around without any problems. What foods and beverage are not allowed to bring into the country. And since gastronomic tourism is also celebration, we'll share with you culinary events and festivals that make it worthwhile to plan your trip in advance. Because traveling and eating is not about tasting, but also about honoring the work of local producers, respecting the laws that protects their heritage, and above all, living the experience consciously and responsibly. So, if you're planning a trip to Chile to delight in its flavors, this episode will give you the tools to make your experience as smooth, as good as a sip of Carmener under the Andean sunset. I close my eyes and think of Chile. I smell the aroma of freshly baked empanadas, hear the murmur of a market, the good afternoon caserita of a vendor, and see the intense color of the fruits and vegetables that I may never have tasted before. But getting to that moment, to the perfect bite, is not a matter of luck. It's a journey that begins long before you board the plane. And as a conscious traveler, today I want to take you by the hand so you can experience Chile with all your senses, but also with respect for its people, its laws, and its customs. The adventure begins by checking the basics, your documentation. Yeah, that's the must. It may sound boring, I know, but trust me, an expired passport or a lost documentation can ruin even the most delightful trip. In Chile, if you're traveling with a passport, it must be valid for at least 6 months from the date of the entry. And although some neighboring countries, such as Argentina and Peru, are allowed to enter with just an ID card, I always recommend carrying a passport. because it is useful for booking hotels, signing up for tours, and even accessing certain exclusive experience. Actually, I remember once in a Casablanca ballet tour where a Colombian couple couldn't participate in a wine tasting because they only had their ID card. Can you believe it? The vineyard required a passport. And although they were giving wine to taste, they missed out the entire guided experience. Carrying printed and digital copies of your documents is a lifesaver. A chef friend of mine lost his ID card on a bus between Santiago and Puerto Montt, but he was able to continue his trip because he had a digital copy and a letter from his consulate. And here's an extra tip. If you're going to rainy regions like Chiloé or Valdivia, keep everything in a waterproof bag. Trust me, the humidity is unforgiving. Another essential document is the tourist card. That piece of paper you receive from the immigration when you enter the country and must return when you leave. It seems harmless, but if you lose it, oh, believe me, it can cause you a headache. It happened to me. I put it in a brochure from a trade fair and spent 3 days looking for it. I couldn't remember where it was. Since then, I always keep it attached to my passport. And if you're thinking of teaching classes, participating in festival as a guest chef, or volunteering in a culinary capacity, check ahead of time to see if you need a temporary visa. Now, once you cross the border, the first major filter is the SAG, the Agriculture and Livestock Service. If there is one country that takes food imports seriously, that is Chile. You cannot bring in fruit, vegetables, seeds, meat, dairy products, honey, or flowers. Even your grandmother's homemade bread can be a problem. Yeah. I remember a woman at the airport who lost some cheese from her mother that was made by her mother. She didn't care about the fine, but hurt her was leaving the little piece of home behind. So my advice is clear. Eat it and then declare everything, even what you think is allowed. The fines are not low, and sad stories in the customs line are more common than you might think. Chile not only protects its cuisine with ancestral recipes, but also with laws and protocols that have very particular histories. For example, health checks at airports and borders crossing not a recent development. They began to be strengthened in the 80s when an outbreak of fruit flies in neighboring countries set off alarm bells and led the implementation of measures that are now among the strictest in South America. So much so that there is a detection dog trained exclusively to sniff out fruit and artisanal cheeses in suitcase, which has had appear also in television reports as a kind of border celebrity. Another curious fact is the tourist card. Remember the one that I told you? That insignificant piece of paper is legally valid and serves as a tax reform form, tax-free, when purchasing certain products, such as premium wines or export crafts. In addition, the SAG not only prohibits the entry of fresh products, but also regulates their exit. Yeah, that's also something you must have on your mind. If you buy seeds or plants in Chile, you need a phytosanitary permit to take them to your country. And in cultural matters, there is a surprising detail. In some southern towns, such as Chiloé, people preserve recipes that include ingredients that are prohibited from entering the country from abroad, but which are a source of local pride with Chile, such as certain seaweeds and dried seafood that travel from market to market without passing through industrial packaging. And finally, something that always catches tourist attention is that although Chile is a world renowned wine producing country, drinking alcohol in public places is not allowed. Including squares and beaches is prohibited. This rule can ruin the perfect picnic. So, if you are not aware of it, but it has been key to maintaining order at large celebrations such as harvest festivals and traditional festivals. Speaking of rules, let me tell you about a story. A French couple who had been traveling through the vineyards of Colchagua decided, with all the innocence, I know, all the innocence in the world, to have a picnic on Pichilemu. That is at the beach. They had bought sourdough bread, goat cheese, asapa olives, and a bottle of exquisite Carmenere wine. They settled in at sunset, opened the bottle, and began to toast. What they didn't know, and no one had warned them, was that in Chile it is illegal to drink alcohol in public, even in places as quiet as the beach. A patrol car drove by, and although they were friendly, they gave them a formal warning. There, there was no fine, but there was a big lesson. Not everything that seems romantic is legal. I helped them to contact a nearby winery where they could have their picnic. Wine included in a designated area. They ended up enjoying themselves just the same, but that episode served as a reminder that every country has its own rules and that being a conscious traveler means staying informed about even the most mundane details. Trust me, keep that in mind. But it's not about banning for the sake of banning. Chile treasures its biodiversity. Thanks to strict control, it remains free of pests that have ruined entire crops in other countries, such as Phylloxera in European vineyards, and that translates directly into the quality of its wines, fruit, and seafood. So instead of taking a risk, buy locally. Murta jam in Patagonia, merquén chili powder at a Mapuche market. That's awesome. Carmenere wine in Colchagua. They'll be fresher and more authentic. In a small town in the south, I met Miss Estelita. Oh, she was a Mapuche cook who made a stew with digueñes, pine nuts, and chili pepper. She grew in her garden. I wanted to buy a small jar of that dried chili pepper to take with me as a gift. And she said to me very tenderly, "My dear, this chili pepper doesn't travel. It stays in the land that made it spicy. She explained that she didn't have certification to export her products, that she didn't use labels or stamps, only cloth and love. And although I insisted, I understood that there are some things that deeper behind her refusal. The chili pepper wasn't a souvenir. It was a piece of identity that couldn't be experienced in other place rather than there, in that corner of the rainforest with its history and its people. Sometimes the most valued thing about a trip is not what you can take with you, but you can choose to live where it belongs, knowing that its value lies now in the object, but in the experience you had. Chile is a country of contrast and intense as its landscape. The north, the dry and bright, the south, humid and grand, the mountains imposing, and the Pacific infinite is wonderful. It's without words. Its history is made up of encounters and cultural fusion. Indigenous people such as the Mapuche, Aymara, and Diaguita, Spanish colonists, and European migrants who brought with them recipes, techniques, and flavors that are now part of the country's soul. This mixture is served every day at the table, from a Mapuche stew cooked over embers to a German dessert with fruits from the southern forest. In the north, patron saint festivals are accompanied by steaming calapurca stew, sopaipillas covered in chancaca, and alfajores filled with manjar. In the south, the rain is met with fried milcaos, rebarbo tart, and freshly harvested homo honey. And in rural areas, tortillas are still prepared in the embers, burned under the hot ashes, and eaten warm with butter. I remember one morning in a small town in Maule when a lady offered me mote con huesillos in a large glass, while she told me that every summer her family couldn't get together to peel peaches, cook syrup, and laugh at old stories. Between sips, I understood that in Chile, sweets and traditions are not only inherited, they are lived as an invisible bond that unites generations. Traveling to Chile with an open palate also means traveling through its seasons, because the country's flavors change with the climate. In the northern highlands, winter brings intensely blue skies and freezing nights that call for thick broths and hot drinks with herbs such as rica rica or chachacoma, while summer is the season for small but intense fruits such as desert guavas or figs from hidden valleys. In the central region, spring not only fills the vineyards with flowers, but also heralds the arrival of farmers' markets with freshly harvested vegetables, perfect for humitas or fresh salads. In the south, autumn is pure abundance. The rain away with mushrooms such as digenes and nourish pastures for lambs with tender meat, while in summer the long middays make the coastal markets shine with cholgas, locos, and sea urchins fresh from the sea. Understanding the natural rhythm is not just a practical matter, it's the key to ensuring that every bite is an authentic expression of a landscape and the moment, because in Chile, eating out of season is like listening to a song without its main instrument. Amidst its culinary richness, there's a richness, ingredient, and preparation that are true icons. Merquén chili pepper, for example. It's a smoked ground mapuche condiment that transforms a simple cheese sandwich into a profound and spicy experience. Carmener, the grape variety that was believed to be extinct and was reborn in Chile, dazzles with intense color and velvety notes. Avocado is the undisputed star. It is spread on bread for breakfast, served in salads, and even tops on Chilean hot dog that is called palta, not avocado, palta, if you're going to Chile. And a Chilean hot dog is such a good experience. Sopaipillas also. Golden and crispy, can be savory or sweet. In winter dip in hot chancaca, they are pure comfort. Oof, they are amazing. Kuchen, a German legacy from the south, is baked with blackberries, raspberries, or rhubarb, filling homes with sweet aromas. The generous and comforting cazuela chilota combines seafood or fish with potatoes and vegetable, perfect for a cold afternoon in the south. Oh, that's amazing. Chile is such an amazing place. Calapurca, typical of the highlands, arrive at the table steaming, heated with incandescent stone and overflowing with corn, meat, and herbs. And mote con huesillo, that drink made with wheat mote with dried peaches and syrup, is more than a refreshment. It's a liquid memory of shared summers. Let's now move on to customs and table matters, which are as important to foodie travelers and the recipes themselves. In Chile, meal times are sacred. Lunch is between 1 and 3 p.m. Dinner starts 8 p.m. and 11. Is between no, sorry about that. Dinner starts at 8. You choose the time. And las onces is between 5 and 8. Something like a snack. Las onces is a charming tradition. Steaming tea, homemade bread, avocado, that is palta, as I told you, cheeses, jams, sopaipillas that are wow, delicious sopaipillas with pebre or cochen. It's an intimate moment for leisure conversation. Once in Puerto Varas, actually, I remember I was invited to Las Onces with a view at Lake Yanquihue. We ended up talking about coaching recipes while the Osorno volcano turned pink at sunset. It was a lesson that gastronomy is not always found in the most famous restaurant, but at a table of a home. At the table, always taste before seasoning. Is a gesture of respect towards that person who cooked. If you toast, so you're looking into the eyes and saying, cheers. And if you visit a market, ask permission before taking photos. And do not touch the products without asking. At rural fairs, bargaining is possible, but more as a game of smiles than aggressive hagging. In different regions of Chile, food is wrapped up in rituals that go beyond the act of eating and deeply connect people with their history and environment. In the north, for example, before preparing a calapurca or a lamb roast at Patron Saint Festival, it is customary to feed the Pachamama. A little wine, chicha, or beer is poured on the ground as an offering to the air to ensure abundance and good flavor. In the central region, during the slaughter of pigs in rural communities, a first cup toast is made with everyone present, a tradition that marks the official start of the day and that no one can skip, even if they do not drink alcohol, in which case they toast with juice or coffee. In Mapuche communities, the Enguyen, a collective spiritual ceremony, includes a special preparation such as mudai, a fermented wheat drink, which is shared from a single container passed from hand to hand as a symbol of unity. On the coast, artisan fishermen often wet the net with pisco or wine. Yeah, you heard well. Before the first outing of the season, believing that this will ensure a good catch. And in the south, when making homemade jams or preserves, some families maintain the customs of setting aside the first jar for a neighbor or elderly relative as a gesture of respect and gratitude for the recipe they had inherited. That is so wonderful, don't you think that? On the other hand, the language in Chile is as flavorful as its cuisine. Oh yeah, and understanding its words can greatly enrich the experience of the foodie traveler. Chilean Spanish has its own rhythm, full of idioms, affecting diminutives and expressions that are often not understood outside the country, trust me, but which say a lot about its people and their relationship with food. Words such as caserita or caserito not only denote closeness at a fair or market, but also a form of commerce based on trust and human interaction, where the buyer is not just another number, but someone with whom a relationship is established. In a traditional picada, it's not uncommon to hear, "Le echo ají, mijita? Would you like some chili, sweetheart?" Or "Le sirvo más cafecito, patroncito? Would you like some more coffee, boss?" Expressions that reflect a culture where language is a tool of affection, hospitality, and even mischief. Knowing that la once is not a time of day, but a light meal at sunset, or the completo is not simply a hot dog, but a traditional institution with avocado, palta, tomato, and mayonnaise, mayo, is also understanding how language name what value And beyond Spanish, there are words like Mapudungun, the language of the Mapuche people, that live on in markets and on plates. Merquén, Mudai, Nachi, Billones. Each word is a bridge to a history, an identity, and a worldwide that is expressed in the way of speaking as much as the way of cooking. For the conscious traveler Spain, attention to the language not only helps to communicate, but also to connect, to read between the lines of the culture served at the table. Because in Chile, as in all Latin America, eating and talking are deeply social acts. Bread is shared, as are words, and knowing how to listen is as important as knowing how to savor. And speaking of fairs and celebration, Chile is a country that knows how to celebrate food. In March, the Colchagua Valley fills with the aroma of grapes during the Harvest Festival, where you can stomp grapes, taste young wines, and listen to stories from wine growers. In February, Chiloé celebrates its gastronomic festival, featuring curanto at al hoyo, seafood meat, and vegetables cooked underground, covered with nalca leaves and hot stones. Watching the curanto being lifted, with the steam escaping and aromas mingling, is like witnessing an ancient ritual. In January, Frutillar combines German cushion and chilote cazuela and its traditional fare with live music in front of the Osorno volcano. And in August, Talca receives Fiesta del Chancho Muerto, a peasant tradition where the pig is used from head to tail. Behind every typical Chilean dish, there are hands that hold silent stories, and learning about them adds a new flavor to the gastronomic experience. In the Limari Valley, Doña Fresia has been growing olives since she was a child. Following the techniques her grandmother brought with her from Spain, her jars of olives in the brine are not sold in supermarkets, only in the town fair, and each purchase comes with a story about droughts, harvest, and family celebrations in the Aysén region. Don Leonel makes buttery cheese from the milk of his cows, milked at dawn in the landscapes that look like a painting. He says he learned the trade by watching his mother sing while curdling the milk, and that cheese also listens. I have heard that not only in Chile, I have heard that in many places. Further north in the San Pedro de Atacama area, a group of Licanantay women are reviving the cultivation of chanat and carabobo trees, transforming their fruits into sweet syrups that rescue almost forgotten flavors and are now served in haute cuisines restaurants. These are people who do not appear in tourist guides, but who preserve the essence of the country. Producers who offer not only food, but also a piece of memory and territory in every bite. But how can you experience all this consciously? This is where my tips as a foodie traveler come in. Plan by region. The north with the Andean cuisine based on quinoa and charqui, the center with its wines, empanada and humitas. The south with its curantos, milcaos, and seafood. Visit markets such as the Central Market in Santiago, the Valdivia River Market, or the Angelmo Market in Puerto Montt. Arrive early to see how the fish are unloaded. Listen to vendors' cries and feel the hustle and bustle that only exists in marketplaces. Support small producers. Take Mapuche cooking workshops by artisanal pisco in the Elqui Valley and respect seasonality. Sea urchins in winter, diaguines in autumn. Move your body responsible. Use public transportation or walk, and always carry a reusable bottle and a cloth bag. Take a little piece of Chilean ham in your suitcase. It's almost inevitable for a foodie traveler, but doing it right requires knowing what's worth buying and what to transport it legally at markets and crafts fairs such as Angelmo in Puerto Montt or Pormaira near Santiago. You'll find handmade kitchen utensils, clay pots and plates that retain the heat of stews, rawly wood, ladles, bread molds that seem designed to last a lifetime. In the South, waivers over table woods and kitchen towels made of wool dyed in with natural dyes, ideal for dressing a table with the soul of a countryside. If you're looking for flavors to relive your trip, go for non-perishable products that are allowed for export, such as Mapuche merquén in sealed containers, murta or calafate jams, ulmo honey, caljul salt, or chocolates from Puerto Varas. For wine lovers, many vinegars offer bottles in rigid cardboard cases, ready to take in the aircraft hold. And if you prefer the spirits, artisanal pisco from the Elqui Valley and cider from the south are increasingly popular options. Be sure to check the maximum quantities allowed by your country and always ask for a receipt, not only to claim tax-free, if applicable, but also as a proof of customs. Avoid buying fresh cheeses, meats, or fruits if you can plan to take them out of the country. The Agricultural and Livestock Service will confiscate them, believe me. Remember that every purchase you make from a small producer or artisan is a vote for the preservation of local culture, and that many of these items and flavors are not found in tourist shops, but in the hands of those who create them with patience and pride. For my coffee. In village, where each cells is celebrated as a bridge to the world. And in after experience Chile with all your senses, you feel that not only leave a connection behind. There are many ways to continue exploring its culinary culture from home. One wonderful option is to recreate Chilean flavors in your kitchen, but not just any recipe. I recommend looking for projects such as Sabores de mi Tierra, Flavors of My Land, an initiative led by rural women who offer virtual classes from their home kitchens in regions such as Nuble, Araucania, and Maule. They not only teach how to prepare traditional dishes such as cazuela, pan amasado, or pebre con merquén, but also share the social and emotional context behind each preparation, turning each class into a window into their daily lives. There are also YouTube channels with heritage focus, such as Chile traditional, where rural cooks explain forgotten techniques such as the use of embers, the fermentation of mudai, or the cooking of seafood in the nalca leaves. For those who want to stay in touch with producers, many local fairs already have a presence on social media. And here's our cooperatives that ship dehydrated products, spices, and handmade utensils internationally. There are even sponsorship initiatives where you can financially support small rural business and receive exclusive recipes, handmade postcards, or seasonal products in return. Because gastronomic tourism doesn't end when you cross the border back home. It can be the beginning of a deep connection with a community, a technique, or a flavor that will stay with you for a long time. Eating consciously also means staying connected with those who grow, cook, and convey a country identity through food. And don't forget that culture can also be enjoyed with your ears and eyes. And Violeta Parra, for your playlist for a country lunch. Inti Millani for long bus trips. And Ana Tujox for getting lost in the streets of Santiago. Watch films like Neruda to travel through poetry, La Nana to enter the intimacy of Chilean home, or Machuca to understand its recent history. And if you love reading, look for La Cocina Chilena by Roberto Marín. Comer con Historia by Sonia Montesino, or Chile a la Mesa by Pilar Larraín. After taking this imaginary journey through Chile together, from the strictness of its rules to the warmth of its cuisine, it's clear to me that traveling while eating is not only an experience for the palate, but also an act of respect and connection. Every step we take as conscious travelers, preparing our documents, complying with regulations, respecting customs, and supporting local producers is a way of thanking this country for opening its door and its table to us. Because as we have heard, behind a plate of cazuela, a sip of carbonara, or a spoonful of mote con huesillo, there are centuries of history, hard-working hands, and a land that is proudly protected. So my invitation is clear. In this episode has made you dream of the markets of Valdivia, the harvest festivals, or the aroma of bread kneaded in the southern kitchen. Don't just keep the imagine to yourself. Plan your trip. Live each step mindfully and share this experience. Recommend this episode to those who dream of discovering the world through food. Subscribe so you don't miss out other upcoming roads. Leave a review or follow me on social media as Tu Viaje Gourmet on Instagram and Facebook. There we share more stories, recipes, anecdotes, and oncoming trips that I am cooking up with incredible communities. Above all, always remember that eating while traveling is much more than just feeding yourself. It's a way to care, learn, and celebrate. See you at the next destination. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the next ones. Also, if you think this content can inspire other travelers or food lovers, please share and comment. It's an incredible way to help more people discover this conscious way of traveling. And with that, we close today's episode. Remember that every trip, every bite, it's an opportunity to connect more deeply with the world around us. So wherever you are, don't stop exploring, tasting, and discovering, because in the end, the best way to get to know a place is by eating it. See you in the next episode. Until then, keep traveling with an open palate and heart.